Remember the X4 video I made last year? The mount situation was a little sketchy, and the 360 footage workflow was such a pain that I ended up just going back to standard non-360 GoPros. But here we are a year later, and I want to show you what changed my mind. This is my new 360 camera setup, and it's completely dialed in. After a ton of trial and error, I think I finally found a way to capture the best 360 footage without sacrificing on things like aerodynamics, or especially without sacrificing my line of sight to the front wheel, which if you race, you know is incredibly important. And the first thing you'll notice, this is not the X4. This is Insta360's new X5. And yes, you may have noticed this mount is different too. So let's actually talk about the mount first. Believe it or not, Insta360 listen to the feedback I gave them in that video from last year. Remember this clip?
Insta360, if you're listening to this, sell this part right here with the camera. Because for us cyclists, this is a key part.
Well, they did. They dropped new purpose-built mounts both for integrated and traditional handlebars. And this alone solves so many of the issues that we had last year. No more third-party clamps, no more weird little fittings, no more fiber grip hacks, and no more risking a $500 camera because your mount slipped mid-ride. But with progress comes a new problem. Out of the box, these mounts hold both your cycling computer and the camera, and it just pushes the camera way too far out in front of the bike. And that means, you guessed it, it blocks your line of sight to the front wheel. And for racing, this is just a no-go. When you're sitting centimeters in front of the wheel in front of you, maximizing that draft, last couple laps of a crit, you need to see that front tire. So I made a small but very critical modification to mine. I trimmed the end off of it and I drilled a new bolt hole, which slides the computer mount, which is no longer a computer mount, underneath the handlebars. And it positions the camera right out front. Clean, low profile, aerodynamic, and still gives you that really cool perspective. But most importantly, I get my full line of sight back to the front wheel. The only drawback is you don't get to see your computer, but I'm gonna argue that this actually isn't a problem. I tell my athletes all the time, on race day, put your computer away. Yeah, turn it on, collect the data, that's important, but then throw it in your back pocket. Focus on what's going on around you. Your power, your heart rate, your speed, those things are irrelevant on race day. They only lead to distract us, make us less situationally aware, and at worst, can make us dangerous. So when I'm training, of course, I want to see the cycling computer. I need to see the data. So on those days, I will spend the 2 minutes to swap out the mount, or most of the time, I'll just get lazy and I'll use one of those rubber band mounts that hook onto your stem. So that's the mounting issue solved. But what about the other headache from last year, editing? 360 footage recorded in 8K is inherently difficult to deal with. The good news is editing has come a long way. The phone app and the desktop Insta360 Studio app are both super easy to use, they're intuitive, and they're perfect for whipping up those quick clips for Instagram, for YouTube Shorts, for anything vertical. You can literally film, cut, and post to your phone within minutes, which I've been doing recently on Strava. But if you've been around this channel, you know most of my content isn't vertical, short form. I do full race breakdowns with overlays showing speed, heart rate, power, and of course maps. And for that, I need a little bit more control, so my new workflow looks like this. I shoot in 8K, 24 frames per second. And one important thing, remember with 360 cameras, the 8K is actually two 4K lenses, one on the front, one on the back. The camera stitches those two 4K images together to create a single 8K spherical image. But here's the thing, when you reframe that footage into a traditional flat video, you're only using a very small portion of the full 360 image. A lot of those pixels never make it into the final frame, and that's why resolution really matters. The higher resolution you start with, the more detail you'll keep when cropping and reframing, giving you a much sharper, cleaner final image. So if your camera supports 8K or higher, always use it. More pixels equals more flexibility and better looking footage overall. And in my case, my new workflow is I take those weird INSV files that Insta360 generates and I stitch them into a single 360 MP4. I bring that MP4 into Premiere Pro where I layer on all the data from my head unit, the power, the speed, the heart rate, all of that. But look, I could spend 20 minutes talking about that whole process. I'm gonna do a full refresher video because it's been like 6 years since I have. Stay tuned for that. But here's what you need to know. What makes all of this easier now is that the X5 footage just looks and sounds great straight out of camera.
Well, now the problem is now if I do, I'm gonna catch so much shit.
Yeah, we could get into the weeds on the larger sensor, the new processing chips, yada, 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 all the other technical stuff that Insta360 is claiming. But here's what really matters. With the X4, which I have over here, I was spending so much time fiddling around with the settings, color grading, post-processing, making it look just right. With the X5, straight out of camera onto YouTube. So I've put the GoPros back on standby and I am back on the 360 bandwagon. And in case you're curious, I'll drop all my X5 settings down in the description if you're curious. And the last thing I'll mention about the X5 is it now has replaceable lenses. So if you're somebody who is doing off-roading, adventure riding, this is a big win for you because, you know, a single piece of gravel would brick the X4, but now it's a $30 quick fix. You're back in action with the X5. Look, if you already have an X4, honestly, you're probably all set. These cameras are expensive. Spend the money on the upgraded mounts. Do my little trick with this mount. Download the newest version of the Studio app and you'll be a happy camper. But if you need the best, if you don't want to spend time dealing with any post-processing, and if you like the idea of repairability, you will not be disappointed with the new X5. Do you guys like the idea of a full editing workflow video? Drop a comment to cast your vote. I would like nothing more than to fully dork out on a tech video. So thanks for watching, and thanks again to Insta360 for sponsoring this video. Check out their summer sales link in the description. Catch you guys in the next one.